So first off, I'm from an organization called People Building. We are a coaching and training company, and our specialism is around improving mental and emotional well-being in the workplace. We are focused on decreasing employee sickness, increasing employee retention, and everything that comes along with improving attitude and mindset. And is really all based around mild to moderate mental health challenges that are costing businesses money. So this is me. I am a franchisor for People Building. So it's a franchise company, just like Action Coach. I am the trainer here, so I train up all of the practitioners at People Building. And then my team and I assist them in building and developing their own client bases. I also have a similar business called NLP for Kids, where we are specifically working with children and young people around improving their mental and emotional well-being. So I too am an employer. I have all of those pains. I'm a podcaster, a YouTuber. I work as a private therapist, an NLP trainer, a hypnotherapist, and my modalities include CBT, so cognitive behavior therapy, DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and I have a master's in psychology. So let's talk a little bit about mental health and how this might be impacting upon the employers, directors, consultants, etc., that you are liaising with. Mental health problems are now the leading cause of sickness, absence in the workplace. It is literally the new bad back. People don't get bad backs now. They have mental health issues. And these mental health and behavior problems are reported to be the primary drivers of disability and disease worldwide. I'm sure you know this already and you don't need me to tell you, but mental health is classified as a disability, which means that employers really need to take it seriously and avoid getting themselves into hot water, because it is treated with the same degree of severity and importance as a physical disability would be. Major depression is thought to be the second leading cause of disability worldwide. So again, another mental health issue there, and it's a major contributor to the burden of suicide and heart diseases. It's estimated that 1 in 6 people in the past week experienced a common mental health problem. Now, don't think about your clients for a minute, just think about you. Have you interacted with 6 different people in the last week? Because what this statistic is telling us is that the likelihood is at least one of those people is experiencing some kind of mental health challenge in their life, and maybe you don't even know about it. And this stat is particularly shocking to me. Only 13% of people in the UK claim to have positive mental health. So what does this mean to employers? Well, as I mentioned there, most mental health conditions fall under the description of a disability according to the Equality Act. And that means that employees are protected from being put at a disadvantage in the workplace if they have a mental health condition or something that arises from it. So disability, by definition in employment law, is a long-term physical or mental impairment which has a substantial negative effect on the ability to carry out everyday activities. Long-term in this case means it's gone on for, or is likely to go on for, at least 12 months, or will probably come back repeatedly. Whether or not it has a substantial effect is based on how it affects them when it is left untreated. So key here is we need to be making sure that our employers and directors that we're working with know to advise their employees, you need to be getting treatment of some kind. You cannot take disciplinary action against employees whose performance drops due to a mental health condition such as anxiety. Now, I've worked with organizations before now where there has been an issue around employee performance, and when they've been called to disciplinary, that's when the mental health issue is revealed. And then the employer is in a situation where they're kind of like, well, like, do I trust that? Are they just using this as an excuse now? Like, what's the truth here? Well, what we need to do is we need to investigate it. We need to figure out, well, actually, is there a mental health issue here? Because if there is, it's always going to work out more cost effective to keep the employee and bring them up to standard and offer them the help and support that they need than it would be to start from scratch and do all of that recruiting again and replacing them. So it's really important that our employers know, well, what route do I need to go down in order to make the provision of help that's required for this person, for their mental well-being? How do I access that? And how do I make sure that what I'm giving them access to is the right thing? Because let's face it, there's a lot of like employee benefit schemes, I think it would come under that bracket, where it's like you log into your portal and you can get discounts with Aldi, and you can get cheap holidays, and you can get 6 weeks membership at Fitness First, and you get some mental health counselling sessions. And it's kind of like everything's in there. Well, those things can be great. I mean, firstly, who needs a discount at Aldi? I have no idea why I plucked that one out the sky. But these sorts of facilities can be great, but in my experience, they're a little bit of a sort of like, oh, we've like brush it off. We've done something for your mental health. There's something there for you. Like, you just need to log into the portal. And actually, that's sometimes just not enough. You know, sometimes people need something really specific. And that's kind of where we come in. Now, I will tell you later, we do have an online portal where people can access and get support. The difference with our one is we do one thing, and we do one thing really well. We just focus on mental health. There is not going to be discounts and holidays and yoga classes and shopping experiences all included. It's just about mental health. That's all it is. Anyways, we'll come back to that in just a moment. Proactive employers are becoming more aware of the value of having mental health coaching in the workplace. However, in many instances, employers and colleagues have no idea that anything is wrong, and the employees suffer in silence. This is where you need to be reminding your employers, are you doing regular one-to-ones? Are you checking in with your staff? So why have we got an increase in mental health issues? Let's go through some of those reasons. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, because the list would be exhausting for us to go through. I'm just going to give you some highlights here. For one thing, we are more connected than we ever were, but we certainly have far less connection. Now, what we know is that human beings are connection-based creatures. We like to feel like we are part of a tribe, but that tribe doesn't do quite as much for us if it is via our smartphone than if it's with someone side by side. Like, we literally get healing from physical touch and from being close with people, from being in the same physical space and physical presence as others. Makes a real difference to the levels of connection that we have with others, and it does good stuff for our mental well-being. Now, of course, there's going to be someone listening who's like, I hate people. I literally want to be alone. That's fine. I too am an introvert. I prefer to be alone as well. However, we still all need people. Like, we still need to connect with other people and form positive relationships. When we have groups that we're following on Facebook, or we are staying in touch with people by text message or WhatsApp, we've probably got a lot more connection-based information that we're bombarded with, but we are not experiencing the same types of physical connection, i.e. in the room side by side, as we used to, and that is important. We are getting less sleep. And additionally, for many people, the quality of the sleep they get is less good than it would have been. There's a few reasons for this. And the one I'm going to focus on talking about for today, so aside from, well, I'm stressed and I'm anxious, there's all these things going around my head, of course I cannot get to sleep, I'm talking to myself all night. Aside from that, the one I want to focus on is light. Now, you've heard by now people saying, don't use your devices in like the last couple of hours before bedtime because of the blue light. But you might not know, like, why is that thing? Like, how is that relevant? Well, blue light is the light that tells your brain it's wakey up time. So when you wake up in the mornings, you want to get as much light into your eyes as soon as possible to give your brain the sensation of being wide awake. So none of that like soft, gentle lighting at 6 o'clock in the morning. It needs to be like, bam, lights on, so that you really spring your brain into action. The challenge is that if you are still having that experience right before you go to bed, your brain doesn't know that it's sleepy time now, doesn't know that you should be winding down. So it doesn't just apply to your blue light devices. And, you know, you can get those blue light glasses. I don't honestly know whether they make that much of a difference or not. But one of the other massive differences that you can make is to stop using your overhead lights. So overhead lights, if you think about light coming from above you, what does that remind you of? What does it make you think of? Like a big light above your head, but you're out in nature. What does that remind you? It's the sun, right? So your brain knows big light over my head means it's sunny. If it's sunny, then that means it's daytime. If it's daytime, I need to be awake. So in some ways, the invention of the light bulb has stitched us up a little bit here, because if you come home from work, and certainly this time of the year, it's still dark it's dark by like 5 o'clock still at the moment, especially with bad weather. You come home and it's dark outside, but then you go around and you put all the lights on in the house. You've basically got all these mini suns that are shining down above you, telling your brain it's time to be wide awake. Now, in order for melatonin, so your sleepy hormone, to start kicking in, it needs to have the experience of sunset and things becoming dark. So a really useful thing that you can do is get your overhead lights off and get lamps switched on instead. Another useful distinction to make is that blue light is the light that keeps you awake. Red light, so that sort of soft, warm lighting. So you get like bright white light, and then you also get warm white. So the warm white or even red lighting is going to start telling your brain, the sun's going down, it's sunset time. You can start to get sleepy, and you're more likely to want to go to sleep and have a good sleep. All right, more work, question mark. Are we? So in reality, no. You might feel like you're working more. You're not. Certainly your clients might feel like they are working far too much. They're probably not. The reality is that if we go back, 100 years or so, people were working 8 days a week. Most people are not working 8 days a week anymore. What does happen, however, now is that most of the adults in a household are all going out to work, and no one is there during the daytime running the house. Now, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but when there was someone at home running the house, it meant that at the weekend, the family could come back together and have their connection time and actually spend time together that was valuable and worthwhile. Instead, what happens now is all of the adults are out of the house in the day. When it comes to the weekend, our whole day is invested into shopping and washing and chores. So you're left with one day to then catch up with everybody that you need to catch up with. So again, we're seeing less useful connection happening in our family and friend relationships. And it appears that we feel like we are working all the time. Poor diet. So we all know the dangers of a Western diet, particularly the effects that sugar has on our body. We are consuming a very high sugar diet. And the downside of a high sugar diet is it pumps up your energy levels, and then you have an energy crash, and it pumps them up and it brings them straight back down again. So you're kind of doing this like S-bend throughout the day. As you eat something sugary, get a spike, and then it crashes. Here's the thing with those energy crashes. It's not just energy that you experience when you are up. It's also, you just feel better. And it's not just lack of energy that you feel when you feel down. It is that you literally feel down. Like you start to feel a bit rubbish. So this diet, which creates a sort of inconsistent energy in our body, is also creating inconsistent mood. We are spending more time on social media. So we've got things like negative comparisons, you know, they're having such a good life and I'm not. And fear of missing out on experiences that everybody else seems to be having, but you. There is also a lack of early intervention in society. So we are seeing, for example, that people might sit on a waiting list for help if they go to their NHS doctor for months, years in some cases. Like particularly adult ADHD diagnosis at the moment, that's like a 3-year waiting list in some parts of the country. So there is sometimes a lack of early intervention or not the right kind of intervention. It's like, go do a CBT course online, you'll be fine. Well, you might learn something, but there's no accountability to keep putting that into action. And what did I say earlier about connection being important? Like we need to be having these real life interactions with people, particularly for those who have mental health challenges. You can't just send them off to do telephone coaching with someone. They at least need a face-to-face with somebody. Biology. So some of us have a biological predisposition towards mental health challenges. If you had a parent with a mental health disorder, or even were just a bit prone to being anxious, like if you had a really anxious nan, that can filter down. You end up with a very anxious dad, and then you're very anxious as well. Substance misuse. So we saw a spike in substance misuse during the COVID pandemic because it was much easier for people to sit at home and have a glass of sherry or whatever they did. And so we may be talking about drug use here. We could be talking about alcohol misuse here. And the reason why people are using these substances is in order to better manage their emotional state. So it's not because they actually want the substances, it's because they want bad feelings to go away or to be reduced or to avoid a certain feeling or emotion that they're experiencing. And of course, we couldn't talk about mental health without talking about the impact of the COVID pandemic. So the COVID pandemic vastly exploded mental health issues in both children and adults. The numbers of people with mental health challenges was already increasing, and COVID took it to a whole new level. Of course, there were worries about having the vaccine. There were worries about not having the vaccine. There were worries about the social isolation side of it. There were worries about the financial side of it, like particularly for those people that you're working with who are responsible for other people's livelihoods. Like the amount of pressure that put onto employers was absolutely catastrophic in some cases. So COVID did us some real damage when it came to mental health. All right, so let's start moving on to the positive side of things now. How do we stop a mental health issue from spilling over from one employee into 5 employees? Some of you might be working with employers who have very young teams. This can be a particular issue if they have young teams of people because they're really prone to influencing each other. So the very first thing is we're going to ignore any issues that we notice, and did I just say we're going to ignore them? We're definitely not going to do that. We're going to address any issues that we notice, and we're definitely not going to ignore them. Don't do that. And we're going to have provisions in place and ready, and we are going to promote them. So on the least expensive side of the coin, we offer mental health support, which includes ongoing free consultation sessions for employees. And it starts from as little as £12.50 per month per employee. The average price is about £16.50 per month, but if they have a larger team, it can start from as little as £12.50. We are going to help employees, or help our employers help their employees, to improve their overall attitude, mindset, and focus. So let me talk to you a little bit more about that. When it comes to attitude, mindset, and focus, there's a really important thing that we all do in our heads to influence that. And that is that we talk to ourselves in our heads all the time. Hopefully not right before you're trying to go to sleep, but you know who you are. When we talk to ourselves inside our heads, the things that we say to ourselves might be making us feel 100 times better or 100 times worse, as if we're hitting ourselves over the head with a very big stick. So what I'm going to share with you right now is just a tiny adjustment that you can encourage people that you interact with to start making. And indeed, if you notice that this applies to you, start making it for yourself as well. It's the difference between asking yourself why versus asking yourself how. Let me explain the difference for you. So first off, if you were to say, why do I have to get so anxious? Like all the time, I'm always so anxious. Your brain will go inside, go through all of your memories, all of your resources, and very helpfully answer the question for you. So the thoughts that come back to you might be, it's genetic. You've had a really difficult week. You're just not motivated enough. No one listens about your worries, and so they build up. You can't control how your body relaxes, and all of that. Like, if you ask yourself why, very often your brain will go back into its memories, look through your resources, going, why? Oh, here we go. Here's a reason. Here's another reason. And there's another reason. So you get an answer to the question, but it's had you go back and look into the past and through a bit of a negative lens so that you find out all of the reasons why you get anxious. Like, thank you for asking and good night. It hasn't solved anything. It's just told you why the problem exists. Well, this is why things are so bad. So a better question is always going to start with the word how. All right, we're going to ditch the why and go with the how. How can I get rid of anxiety and feel happier? If you ask this question, then your brain goes back to all your memories, all your resources, going, how? And the really good thing is it will start looking into the outside world. So there's a part of your brain at the back called the reticular activating system. It works like a radar. So it's going to scan the world around you and go, there's something. That might be something we could use. Like, let's make a note of that. You can drive and go past a bus stop and see something out the corner of your eye and go, that's a really good idea. I'd like that. That would really make me happy. That would really help me to increase my bravery. That would be a good hobby for me to take up to improve my resilience. So when you ask how, you're not necessarily going to get like quick fire answers coming in. There might be something in your internal resources that would answer the question for you. But the most important thing about how question is it gets you looking outside of yourself. So you get new information coming in, new inspiration. So it's not necessarily going to be quick fix answers, but you ask this question and you ask it enough, you will start to get some useful answers, such as praise yourself when you do well. All right, so let's take a look at this one. This one is about the framing of how, again, you might talk to yourself inside your head. So there is going to be a big difference between telling yourself something like solving your problems is going to be hard. Let me just pop that back on the screen there for you to see. So solving your problems is going to be hard. Here's what I want you to do. So you there right now listening to me, I want you to just kind of maybe even close your eyes if you want to, and just say to yourself, solving my problem is going to be hard. Notice what that does. How does it make you think? How does it make you feel? Is there any particular picture that comes to mind or a particular sensation that you get when you think to yourself, solving my problem is going to be hard? Now, here's what happens for me. If I say to myself, solving my problem is going to be hard, it's as if I've hit something solid. It feels like whoosh, like a brick wall. Thud, there it is. All right. That's what happens in my mind if I think solving my problem is going to be hard. It feels solid, like a literal physical block of something is in the way, and I'm not going to be able to get through that thing easily. So here's what I want you to notice instead. What happens if you take that same statement, but we're just going to change it a tad? Can I get that cursor to exactly the right place? Solving your problem is not going to be easy. Do the same thing. Just tap into yourself inside. Is there a particular image that comes to mind? Is there a certain feeling that you get if you tell yourself solving your problem is not going to be easy? Okay, it's not going to be easy. And how is that different to solving your problem is going to be hard. So for me, when I think solving the problem is not going to be easy, I get like swishy grass, you know. It's like there's stuff in the way, but it's movable. I can push my way through this somehow. Solving your problem is not going to be easy. It kind of feels like it's doable in some way, right? Now, that's going to be the experience for most people. Most people are going to feel that kind of, for it's going to be hard. And if it's not going to be easy, it's a small shift. And what we can be doing as people who are consulting and coaching is to reframe the things that people say so that we give them a lighter experience in their interaction with us. They don't make life more difficult for themselves than it needs to be. And these are the sorts of things, these are the sorts of skills that we teach when we are helping people to realign their mental well-being. All right, so how do we go about nurturing resilience? Resilience is something we often talk about as an antidote to mental health challenges. You know, there's a lot of talk about the sort of snowflake generation, like this new wave of employees that we're taking on who do not have the resilience that those of us over 40-something have. And it's because they've grown up in a very different environment to what we did. You know, when we grew up, you could go out on your bike and you'd know it was time to come home because you either heard your mum hollering or you could see it was getting dark. So we didn't have the same sorts of restrictions that they did growing up. And we thought for a long time that there's so much freedom that technology offers us. But on the flip side, there's a lot of toxicity that comes with it as well. There is certainly something to be said for the fact that we probably had it harder growing up than they did. You know, if I wanted to find something out and buy a new pair of boots, those two tasks would have required me to either walk into town or to get a bus. And then I would have had to have gone to the library and spoken to a librarian, like talk to an adult and find the right book and then write down the information or retain it in my brain. And then I would have to go through the Marlow shopping centre and go to every single shoe shop to find the pair of boots that I wanted to buy. If you are a young person now, or you've grown up in, you know, the last 10 years or so as a young person, and you wanted to find something out and you wanted to buy a pair of boots, you'd go onto Google and you'd ask the question about the information you wanted to find out. Then you'd go on to Amazon or Next.com, depending on your budget, and you type in boots and they'd get delivered to you. Like the entire interaction is set up to be easy, but easy isn't always a good thing. Easy doesn't always help us. So we want to nurture resilience. One of the ways we can do that in those who do not have as much resilience as they might like is to empower them by saying, what are you going to do to solve the problem? There are two things that are very important happening in this sentence. Firstly, we are telling them you are responsible for solving this problem. Okay, it's on you. I'm empowering you. I'm trusting you. The second thing is we're telling them this problem is solvable. That's important. However, do they have the capacity to take the first step that's needed to be able to solve the problem? If they don't have the confidence to ring up the counselling service, they're probably not going to do it. They may not have the capacity to come to your HR department or your employee's HR department and say, I'm struggling right now. But they may not feel that they're able to do that. So we have to work around these things. We can offer suggestions and encouragement, but it's really important that your employers don't mollycoddle employees who are not functioning well due to mental health challenges. What that means is, let's say that we've taken on a lovely new young girl. She's called Janice, and Janice has said that she is struggling with the task of printing and binding as part of her admin role. And every time she does it, she gets super anxious and it's really affecting her mental health. So what we could do is we could say, well, don't worry, Janice, we'll give that job to somebody else. You don't have to do it anymore. right? That would be a bit of a mollycoddling approach, because we've taken the problem away from her rather than giving her the skills that she needs to step up and start to be able to do that job in some way, shape, or form, and to improve her resilience. A better solution would be, why don't we have someone do that with you for a little while so that you can see how they do it? They can teach you some shortcuts and some skills. Or how about we say that you only do 5 of them this week instead of 20? We'll build it back up again gradually once you've got into the swing of doing it a bit more. This is all resilience building. What we've got good at as employers is saying, oh no, this is a mental health issue. I need to make this problem go away because this is part of the Disability Act and that's terrifying. So let's just like make them not have to do that anymore. And then that solves the problem. But what we're doing then is we're keeping that person weak. What we want to be doing instead is encouraging and empowering and developing these skills that they are lacking. So avoid avoidance, no burying heads in sand. So proactivity, if it comes to it and they are not able to solve the problem for themselves, we make it a joint problem. What are we going to do about that? Like, let's do it side by side. I will take the steps with you. Let me get you booked in with one of the people building coaches for a consultation, and we will see if we can get some funding in place to get you the help that you need. I'll get it booked in. If you want me there, I'll be there beside you. Make it a we problem. Think about how thick skins are developed. So often when we talk about resilience, the metaphor that we use is having a thicker skin. So think about it. Actual thicker skin. Look, maybe a granddad or an uncle or someone that you know who has like literally got thick skin on their hands. How did they get that? Because it probably wasn't from manufacturing baby oil. It was probably from doing something rough and tough and gritty, right? You know, like if you rub your hand up against tree bark or sandpaper, it's going to cause friction, which is uncomfortable. It's gonna like feel a sense of resistance, like it's gonna be hard going. But as a result of that friction happening, you develop a thicker skin. So when we're saying to Janice, you know what, we're going to keep you doing that role, but we're going to find a workaround to help ease you into it or to make it easier for you to do in the interim. But ultimately, you're going to have to do this job. All right. When we do that, what we're doing is we're thickening her skin. We're helping her to develop resilience. If we said, don't worry, Janice, you never have to touch the printer ever again. Then what we're doing is we're taking away the opportunity for her to learn and grow and get a thicker skin. So she's never going to have the resilience if we take that option. All right. So how to cope at a management level? Yes, of course, because we're talking about how your employers are going to be dealing with the mental health of their employees, but you're dealing with directors. You are dealing with managers, business owners. Are these people stressed out? Oh, yes, they are. So what are you going to do as an action coach? What are you going to do to help these people? You're going to ignore it. Of course you're not. You're going to address it. Do not ignore it. You're going to bring it up with them. Have some provisions in place already and promote them. If you are dealing with a director who has mental health issues, then you need to be saying to them, look, there are at least 2 things I can tell you about as a result of coming to this webinar today. One of them is going to benefit you and everyone on your team, your entire team. And on average, like the lowest average cost is about £12.50 per employee per month for you to have access to this very specific support. But we have free stuff too. I'll come to that. Attitude, mindset, focus. We talked about that. How versus why, hard versus not easy. All of that stuff still applies. Your leaders and managers also need to be recording the actions that they're taking, suggestions that they're making, one-to-ones that they're doing, meetings that they're conducting with employees. They need to be proactive, all right? Proactively addressing mental health concerns of themselves as well as their employees. They need to make it part of their weekly focus. If they do some bookkeeping every week, then this needs to be something they also do every week. Like, what is a job they do every week in their business right now? doing something around mental health should be one of those things. And remember that everyone is in charge of their own mental health. So you can lead the horse to water, you cannot make it drink the water, but you can certainly create an environment where everybody else is drinking the water. So you're just going to be the one strange one if you're not doing it as well. Don't try to be an expert, but do bring in expert help. Hola. Quite often, well, actually, no, I don't hear about this quite so much anymore. This is kind of fallen out of fashion. But a few years back, everyone was getting a mental health first aider. Yeah, we've covered it. We've sorted out mental health. We've got a mental health first aider. Well, you know who was dealing with the mental health first aiders? Me. Because all the mental health first aiders were suddenly getting bombarded by all of this stuff, these challenges and traumas that people were coming to them with that they were not qualified to deal with. Oh, I did an 8-hour training online. Well, you know what? That's probably not geared you up to be a therapist. And now you've put yourself in a therapeutic role as well as doing your own job. So go to the experts if you want expert help. Here's some other things to know. So we have a program in place, which is a monthly subscription, and it enables every employee to access a free consultation session. It's a session that helps them to meet their individual needs, plan out what those are, and to figure out what their goals are going to be for just their life in general, as well as their mental health. Alongside that, yes, there is a platform to access a variety of mental health resources, including monthly masterclasses that we do as well. So this month, our masterclass was about how to build healthy habits. The month before that, it was about the impact of traumas on mental health. So these are live. People could come along, join in, interact, make suggestions for future masterclasses as well. It is a monthly retainer fee that applies on average. It's about £12.50 per employee per month. And we have an employee mental health coaching facility that comes with that. So with that, we use a combination of different psychological interventions, some of which I mentioned at the very beginning. These are for ongoing one-to-one sessions. And typically these are funded either by the individual themselves, or in most cases, the company that is paying the retainer for the employees to have access to all of the previously said literature. They will actually subsidize the one-to-one sessions that are required, and typically allocate something like 3 sessions per employee so that they can get the help that they need as and when they need it. So these bespoke coaching sessions take place on Skype, face-to-face, and we also do group trainings, and those sessions start from £80 per session. Obviously, we've got all the bells and whistles, so insurance and DBS checks and CPD and retraining and all of that jazz is all the badges that we possess. And the thing that you've probably really come along excited to hear about today is access to funding. So we work with the Department for Work and Pensions to help people access a fund, which is a £65,000 fund per employee per year. And it is available to all of those with mental health issues, and they do not need to be issues that have a diagnosis. It does, however, include support for those with neurodiversities such as ASD, ADHD, dyslexia, PTSD, etc. The application process is free. There is no financial contribution from an employer or an employee if they have less than 50 staff. The one-to-one coaching by our practitioners takes place for 10 weeks, plus they can get an additional 6 sessions, which take place on a monthly basis thereafter, and it's a 16-week turnaround. So if you have someone in mind, or your employer has someone in mind that this would be relevant for, don't delay, because there's a bit of a wait. It's a government fund, so of course it's not going to be quick. At the bottom there, you can see a link to my calendar where you can get yourself, your employers, or your employees. I, for not 1 second, am going to make the assumption that every single action coach is in tip-top mental health, because I know what it is to be self-employed. So, you know, if you're having challenges, maybe it's you, maybe this is actually for you today. This is the link to the calendar. You book in there either for a quick chat to find out more about this, if that's what you need, or you can book in for an actual consultation and we get the application done for you. So things for you to know, we have 2 offers, right? So I've told you about the retainer agreement, which includes free consultation sessions for every member of staff in an organisation. They get access to all the mental health resources, as well as those live interactive mental health masterclasses. Mental health becomes addressed on an organisational level. There is not individual one-to-one sessions included in the cost, but it is a fast solution. So typically we're looking at £12.50 plus per person per month that the organisation is paying. So it's in a tiered system. If you have more employees, it works out cheaper. So as a maximum cost, it's about £16.50 per head. Then we have the funded option. This does not include free consultations for all staff. It does not give you access to the mental health resources or the live monthly masterclasses, and it does not address mental health issues on an organisational level. It does, however, include individual one-to-one sessions. It is not a fast solution. It's a 16-week wait time. So what we're seeing is some of the organisations we work with do both of these. So they are both invested in the retainer, so that's everybody taken care of. But then when they have employees who have a really specific need, and the employee can't pay for the sessions and the company can't stretch to offering them free paid for sessions, then we've got the option to go for this funding from the Department for Work and Pensions. We do all of the application process for you. There is no cost for us doing the application, and there is only a financial contribution from the employer if they have more than 50 staff, and it's tiny. So it's still something that's really worthwhile doing. Again, there is a link to the calendar there so that you can find out more. So I hope that that was helpful for everybody today. If you do have any further questions, you can also hop over to peoplebuilding.co.uk. You will see a page on the website, which is called Access to Work. There is more information and a further video there. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day and keep yourselves mentally healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.